to EBC Unpack. My name is Mike. This is Matt, and today we're joined by Jules.
Julian! Hey, fam.
Jules is one of our Bible college students here at the church, and all-round great guy. Really glad you got to come on and came onto the show. Looking forward to it. Today we are continuing on in our series on the Sermon on the Mount, and today we're actually picking up where we left off last time with Danielle in the end of chapter 5, and so that's what we're going to be doing. So, just to give a little bit of context, what we looked at last week is we looked at how Christ came to fulfill the law, not abolish the law, and so we're talking a lot about the way Jesus interacts with the law and how we do as Christians as well. What we're going to get into this time is some of the specific things that Jesus then addresses, specific aspects of the law, those being anger, lust, divorce, oaths, retaliation, and loving your enemies. So those are the... Is that all? Yeah, that's right, yeah. Scattergun. So we're covering a lot of ground today. I can't believe we tried to do it in one episode last week. But here we go. And so the first thing that we notice... Well, let's start with anger. I reckon let's go bit by bit. Let's start with anger. The one thing we'll notice as we read this passage is this repetition of the formula. You have heard it said, but I say to you. You've heard it said this, but I say to you. So that's what we start seeing from verse 21. You have heard it said to those of old, you shall not murder, and whoever murders will be liable to judgment. So you shall not murder, one of the 10 Commandments. That's what he's drawing on there. But I say to you, everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council, and whoever says you fool will be liable to the hell of fire. So if you're offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother and then come and offer your gift. Come to terms quickly with your accuser while you are going to court, lest your accuser hand you over to the judge and the judge to the guard, and you shall be put in prison. Truly I say to you, you will never get out until you have paid the last penny. So this is the formula that Jesus uses again and again and again. You've heard it said, especially in the Old Testament law, in the 10 Commandments. But I say to you. You've heard it said, but I say to you. What's Jesus doing here with that formula? Before we jump into anger in particular, what do you think Jesus is actually doing?
That's what you're saying.
Like he's doing that on purpose. He's doing something here.
Yes. Yeah.
He's taking the law.
I think he's taking something that we would perceive as quite serious. It will, like, obviously murder. You do it, that's horrible. The destruction it causes. And he's equating that with the small things that we do in everyday life.
Yeah.
Someone wrongs me while I'm driving. You...
Finish the sentence.
No.
What do you say, Jules?
It says...
There are
anyone who
children
says
watching
you fool.
So this is safe for
Liable
kids.
to the hell's fire.
I think is the word, isn't it?
Nope.
What? It's like raka.
Raka, that's the word.
Yeah.
But we don't know what that means.
No one does.
We're fine. We're safe. He's bringing something up as a society. We would say yes, murder is terrible, but being angry or upset or calling someone a fool or silly or just going at someone with all of your pent up rage, he's making them quite serious too. Like the words that he uses are you're liable to judgment, like the same judgment as murder. He says that you're going to be liable to the council. I'm not as familiar with what that council would be specifically. Presumably the Jewish council.
The Israelite leaders.
Yeah.
For us, the popo.
The
fuzz.
Probably more like the elders of the church. It would be the more direct equivalent. Yeah.
Police, no?
Yeah.
Popo, the fuzz.
Depending
Elders,
on
okay.
I think elders, because murder would be the police.
People to whom you are
anger.
accountable.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
And then saying you fool is what is it?
Your insult to God.
You're liable to hell.
Yes.
Flip.
Yes. So, okay, here's something that I want to ask you then. Is Jesus saying those two others? So you just said you used the word equate. He's equating them. Is he actually equating them? Like, is it the same thing for me to say you fool to someone who cuts me off in traffic as murdering that person? Surely there's a difference.
Maybe a better way of saying it is because he's not saying murdering someone and not murdering someone are the same thing.
No.
But what he is saying is both of them are breaking the command, or
Yeah.
breaking the spiritual principle that the command is describing.
That's right.
There is something in us which is violent, and sinfully so,
Yeah. And angry.
self-righteously angry. Because God has anger. It's not sinful anger.
Yeah.
There is a what does it say elsewhere? The anger of man has never brought about the righteousness of God. Right?
That's right, yeah.
There is a wrong kind of anger which is in us as a result of the fall, which expresses itself ultimately in murder, but it expresses itself well before that point.
Yeah.
Which shows that we are not perfect like God is perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think of also in Ephesians where Paul says, "Be angry,
And do not sin.
but do not sin." And so it's like, okay, so there are times in my life where anger is called for, and it's the godly response. So when I witness evil and I don't feel anger, something's actually misfiring. There should be a response of anger in certain situations, but do not sin.
Yeah.
Don't take that anger and do the self-righteous thing, and that's why he says be careful with anger, because it's so dangerous. It can spiral out of control into sin really fast, and we almost equate the two. But in God can be angry and not sin, and so
Then there's another kind of anger, which is kindled when I don't get my way. That is not righteous anger.
no.
It's the anger of hey, I don't know if you realise this, but you're meant to worship me, and
right.
I'm the centre of the universe.
That's right. Yeah.
And
you got
I'm
the
now
name?
sitting in judgment on you for driving in my lane of the highway. I paid for this lane. It is mine. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we do. But the other thing that I'm seeing here is that he says he's equating. He's not equating the two so much as he's equating the result of the two, the punishment of the two. They're both breaking the command.
Yes.
He's not saying that to murder someone is as destructive
Yes.
as anger. One ends a person's life and has catastrophic results. You'll end up in prison, etc. So there's a difference between them in terms of the way they work out in life, and yet, in the eyes of God, they are both the violation of the same command. Yeah.
Yeah. I do you mind if I diverge from your question?
Diverge. Yeah, that's the whole point.
I find these two passages, like this one and the next one I'm going to look at, really helpful for me in talking to people about righteousness and the idea of, like, evangelism, in the idea of I am a good person. Because God's holy standard is entirely different. I think that's really helpful when you said it's not the consequences that we experience that are the same. But it's this spiritual, eternal aspect that's going to be different.
Yeah.
That's going to have an effect on us, which is it's sin, and we're liable to a judgment.
Yeah.
And so I find this passage helpful for myself in showing people that their righteousness is not what they think it is. Like they are not as good as they think.
Yeah.
Because God's standard is entirely different from our own. Like our legal system doesn't really show that anger with your friend, with your parents, with someone on the road, unless you do an action, has any real penalty. But according to God's law, there is a penalty. But it's just different from what we see right now in some cases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's this idea of that nothing is done in secret in our world, right? I only get punished for things that I get caught for that are wrong. But in reality, God sees all things, and He knows even the intentions of our heart, the Bible says, right? And so, there's nothing that is hidden from Him. So we're accountable for all of it. Whereas we're used to thinking we're only accountable for the stuff we get caught for.
Yeah.
Whereas in the eyes of God, we live our entire lives, before the face of God. That phrase we were talking about the other day, coram Deo, in our prayer. I don't know if you guys were here. Before church the other day, we were talking about this idea of coram Deo, living our life before the face of God. And that's all of life. We live in that space where His presence is there, and we're living, before Him. He knows all things. And, there's never a moment where we are away from Him. And so that means that, it's not just my actions, but also my intentions, my attitudes, my motivations. What's going on in here that He is very aware of. That's good.
Are you angry, man? How does it speak to you?
I can be. Yeah, when things don't... I think there are rare moments of exceptional anger when things don't go my way. Something that God's been working in me recently, not even recently, in the last few months, has been learning the joy that I'm not in control of this world and God is. And so I get to live each day knowing that, this anger particularly comes out in relationships where I see people are being hurt. And so I still don't think that by any means it's a righteous anger because it leads me into doing saying or speaking unrighteously, to my parents, to my dad. I don't speak to him with honor that a son should in these moments of these fits of anger. But the reason those fits of anger come about is because why don't you just change? And the only answer to that is because I'm not God and I can't make you change in this way. Even though, from my perspective, I think that this change will be thoroughly beneficial to your life and to family life for us. But he, in this moment, can't see that. I could be in the wrong too. I'm willing to let God work in that way as well. But yeah, it's just this thing of letting go of control, just letting God be the ruler and sovereign Lord in this world, and just being content with that. It's a joy, but it's also a challenge because I've been so used to things just not even going my way, but there's a control that I've tried holding, and just over in this last year, right, I've had very little control over all of the things that have happened to me.
Hashtag 2020.
Woo! Yeah, 2020, yes. Oh, that's another thing. Jeez, I was like, anger comes out through lack of control, and I'm learning to relinquish that to God, and that's been freeing. That's been wonderful. But there's still moments where I need to do it again and reevaluate my heart. Just let God be in control of it.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head with that idea of control, right? I think that's where it comes out for me. I'm not a particularly angry person. This is not something that comes out of me much, but I get frustrated. And frustration is what? I've never been frustrated. And it's all about control, right? All about that sense of desire for control, and when things, I think that's maybe that trap of people as a means to an end, rather than the ends themselves. You know what I mean? As well, but the other thing that I can't help but notice that Jesus brings up is reconciliation with your brother, right? It's like no, if there is a broken relationship, that thing really matters to God. That there is unity in our relationships, and He says, leave your offering at the altar and go and make that right. That is what God would have of you, more than that sacrifice of worship.
Yep.
It is worship to go and reconcile. That is what God wants from you in that moment. Yeah. It's like, man, that's
time.
That's it's a high calling. Hey.
Yeah.
The other thing it does as well, right? We can do this with each of them. Is that Jesus is describing the coming kingdom to us. And so one of the things we know about the coming kingdom is that it will be free of the murderous anger of man.
Yeah.
The violence of our hearts will be a thing of the past. And what a world it would be when laws like do not murder are no longer relevant because nobody would anyway. That's pretty cool. I see that as something worth hoping for.
We're praying for. We'll be talking next week about your kingdom come, your will be done, right? Like that's the prayer, right? That your will be done here. And this is a small snapshot of what that might look like. Lust. It takes the same thing.
Innocent again?
You have heard it said, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of your members than that your whole body be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. For it is better than you lose one of your members than your whole body go into hell. He just keeps using that word hell, doesn't he? And it makes you uncomfortable every time. Doing the exact same thing here, right? Like, isn't it? It's pretty obvious what he's doing. You've heard it said. She's not your wife. She's not yours. But I say to you, if there is any intention to break that, not even intention, if there is any entertaining of the thought of it, that is breaking the same commandment.
Because this is what it's doing, isn't it? I think we'll see this again and again. The laws are commanding us about external actions that we shouldn't be doing. And we can miss the point that there is a connection between what's happening in your heart and what's happening in your external actions. And therefore that law condemns the sinful heart as much as the sinful action. Don't commit adultery. Good command. Don't tolerate it in your mind. Impossible. Impossible. Not even a thing that we necessarily choose to do all the time. And what we're seeing is this. We're seeing a sinful inclination. We're seeing that we are naturally sinful.
Bent towards it.
Yeah, I cannot murder. I've successfully never murdered someone in my awareness. Yeah.
Just.
But the
Confession time.
There was a funny story, but I won't tell you about that.
we should
I
ask
have
you
not
before
murdered
we
anyone.
record. Yeah.
I should definitely clarify that.
Can we get funny story about the murder thing? Yeah.
Right, but the anger that leads to murder, that's in me. I'm capable of murder. That I must conclude.
Jesus would say so. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never committed adultery, but the thing that leads there, it's there. It's in me. I'm an adulterer by nature. That's what I see when I look at God's law. And it's a humbling moment of realization, isn't it? That I'm not like Jesus. He's better than me. Yeah.
Yep. The very next thing he goes to say to us is hyperbolic. Let's talk about
Let's
it.
hope it is.
Let's hope it is. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out, throw it away. If your hand, cut it off. Right. I read that hyperbolically. I think that's the way most people would read it. However, what it must be saying is like, okay, so is he not literally saying
Paul
like
has a slightly more fun version of it later on in Galatians.
Yeah, that's right.
It's to do with circumcision. Yeah.
If you think circumcision is going to help, just go the whole way and cut it off. That's what he says.
What?
Have you ever seen that?
Galatians, right?
I read that book. I've never heard cut the whole thing off.
Oh, it says I wish they'd go ahead and emasculate themselves. The people.
Oh, that's what that means. Oh.
If they think circumcision is going to make them right with God, why don't they just go ahead and go the whole way?
Just do it properly. Make sure. Yeah.
Lance.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. Yeah, it's in the Bible, guys. So maybe we can say, okay, what he's not saying is we have to physically mutilate ourselves. But what must he be saying? If that's what he's not saying, okay, what is the very least that he must be saying? Do you know what I'm saying?
I go on. Ready? Tell me what you think about this. We often think about sin the wrong way around. So if we're approaching God through the lens of hypocritical religion rather than sincere faith, we look at God's laws, and what our heart does is it says, what's the bare minimum that I can get away with in having fulfilled this? Rather than giving God my first fruits, rather than giving him the best portion of my heart, what's the smallest portion I could possibly give him so that I can't be accused of wrongdoing? So the classic illustration is the young Christian couple who are dating, and they want to honour God's plan for sex and marriage. So they're going to wait until they're married before they have sex. Define sex. Well, let's define that as loosely as we're just going to push that boundary and push that boundary and push that boundary of our physical relationship as close to the line as we can possibly get. That is the insincere, hypocritical version of religion.
Because the impulse is to start with that line rather than to start with the intention of the command.
By the letter of my law,
That's right.
where I'm innocent. If we flip that around, if your hand is causing you to sin, cut it off. Refuse to be in a situation where sin will gain mastery over me. Like if it's like I'm better off without a hand than with sin, right? Which is going to cause me to just not flirt with boundaries foolishly. I'm going to give God my purity, the best of my heart, not the last little step. This is one illustration of 1,000 different ones.
I think that's a good illustration.
What movies do we watch on TV? Surely everyone comes across this one, right?
Yeah.
What can I tolerate on that screen before what I'm watching is inappropriate for a Christian person? How much idolatry can I sit with? Be it the glossy magazine with the picture of the beautiful houses. If only I could have that house, then I'd be happy. How long will you allow your heart to flirt, sit over that idol before you're committing idolatry? Versus this is taking my attention away from God. I'm not going to read that anymore. It's no good for me.
What Jesus has to be saying here is that, like, sin is just so poisonous that it'll destroy you, and you can't let it anywhere near. You wouldn't let a lion into your house. You just wouldn't. Some people do. Tiger King.
There was
haven't seen it, but
It's the more recent one. I was thinking of the guys from Las Vegas, so I think got nibbled on a little bit.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Siegfried and Roy? Google that. Yeah.
What about the story of the I think it was a girl who had a snake in her bed and it was sleeping next to her and it got bigger and bigger and it was sizing her up. It was waiting to
Which one's longer? That's great.
And really that's what it was doing. Sleeping in the bed. It was trying to figure out at what point you can kill her.
Oh my god!
It's like that's a pretty good illustration of what sin's doing to us when we let it into our bedrooms or let it into our lives. We're
Really,
at
that's
that door.
not a true illustration, but it sounds something that could.
Look, it's on the internet now, so it has to be true.
Real. Yeah, it must be real.
Headed here.
There's nothing untrue on the internet.
I think something along those lines. Sorry, you
No, you say your thing.
something along those lines is a caution for myself is question like it's really kind of with tying what both you guys were saying together is asking myself, is this going to numb my affections for God in some like will I be by pursuing this thing, this sin, this lust, this adultery,
Or even this neutral thing. Like,
yes, yeah, whatever it may be, will this be taking my affections away from God? Or will this be even numbing my conscience towards what is sin?
Yeah.
Because I think I don't want to make this an impersonal thing, but I think of some friends who some of the things that they watch, and I'm like, I don't think you would have done that 4 years ago in the faith, but now you've become so desensitized to the sin. Well, sorry, to the things that the images that you're receiving, that you don't even like. It's not a thing anymore. Does that make sense? Like the numbing of it,
Building up heart calluses to that sensitivity to God.
Yeah.
And you're right. Yeah.
So it's a different heart, isn't it? There's the heart that says, "What can I get away with?"
Yeah.
And there's a heart that says, "How can I most please God?" And I'll start there.
Yeah.
And they have nothing in common. Ultimately, they have nothing in common. One is sincere and one is insincere.
I'm going to pick it back up.
Yeah.
Let me read from verse 31. As also said, whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you that everyone who divorces his wife, except on the grounds of sexual immorality, makes her commit adultery, and whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Again, I say to you, again, you have heard it said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform to the Lord all you have sworn. But I say to you, do not take an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by earth, for it is his footstool, I love that, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not take an oath by your head, for you shall not make one hair white or black.
Some of us are just hoping for hair.
I was going to say it. Let what you say simply be yes or no. Anything more than this comes from evil. So he's just gone through and he's just going, hey, the way you view marriage, it's out of sync with God's plan. The way you view oaths and promises, just let your yes be yes and your no be. Just be a truthful person. All the rest just comes from an unnecessary place.
I've had a daydream about a moment that I'd love to happen in my life at some point, but it's yet to happen.
Go on.
So I've seen enough movies, crime dramas and courtroom dramas these days where they bring the people in and they swear them in on the Bible to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yeah.
And I want to have that moment in real life so that they can hand me the Bible to swear on, and instead of swearing on it, what I'll do is open it and just read this.
So great.
The concept of swearing on a Bible is blasphemous.
I've never even thought about that before.
That we are explicitly told not to do that thing. I don't know where that tradition came from, but it's
Jesus
different
has
than
something
how
to say about it,
Jesus
though.
said we should conduct ourselves. That's right. Yeah, I'll probably never get that moment because that'll be mostly ego. But I would enjoy it a little bit too much. Yeah.
Oh man.
It's open. What's this?
It's on the mount.
I might just read it if it's open.
Oh, you've heard it said. Let me keep going. So you've heard it said, an eye for an eye, and we have to get to love your enemies. That's what I'm trying to get to.
That's okay,
There's so many good things we can spend time on, but there. You've heard it said, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, that was the justice system of the day, right? But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. If anyone would sue you and take your tunic, let him have the cloak as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. Give to the one who begs from you, and do not refuse to the one who would borrow from you. you have heard it said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet only your brothers, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? Therefore, you must therefore be perfect, as your heavenly Father is perfect. Let's spend some time talking about this. Let's spend some time talking about this. The world says, someone slaps you, slap them back, right? Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Jesus says...
Actually, that's God in Genesis.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's quoting the law. Yes. Okay. No. I was going to go here, but I'll let you do it. How? Okay. So Jesus is quoting the Old Testament law, as he has done. And now what is he doing with it?
He's making it harder.
So it's not eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth? There's a distinction here that I want to get to that I don't know.
Well, will you tell us what your distinction is, for the sake of time?
He's talking to people, not to the law courts. The law system is justice, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. If you murder someone, you will go to jail, right? We believe that because we believe in the concept of justice. Jesus here is not talking to judges and to lawyers. He's talking to individuals. So in your life, it is not yours to seek justice for yourself. That's what Jesus is saying. You leave justice to the Lord and to the authorities.
Another way to say that is that there's a certain amount of injustice we're willing to embrace, directed at us.
Directed at us, yeah, that's right.
We are willing to forego certain rights for the sake of something higher than my individual rights.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, I'm willing to choose to, they are my right.
Yeah.
Lay them down at the feet of God.
Yeah.
So you look after those.
Yeah.
Why? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what? Like why do I want to forgive my enemies? Give me a good reason to. Because quite frankly, I don't want to.
It's easier not to.
Yeah, they are in fact my enemies. Yeah.
What do you reckon, Jules?
You're both looking at me, yeah.
No, hey.
This is the hardest thing.
Yeah, yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like of all the things that we've read, I think this is the one that punches the hardest.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Because injustice is the worst, right? When it's done against you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's when you do it against someone else and you seek reconciliation, forgiveness, repentance, you want to be repentant. You feel dreadful just doing it still because you know you've wronged someone. But then to be on the other end of it, of the receiving end of that, you then have to do the hard work of you've hurt me and now I'm going to forgive you. And in this case, it says your enemies probably aren't going to come to your door and say, hey, can you forgive me for this thing I've done against you? They're probably going to keep on doing it or not even give two hoots about it.
Yeah.
And you've just got to, like, I think that's like, that'll be a huge mark of humility.
Yeah.
But you give up what it is that you, I don't know, rightfully deserve, right? Like, they have wronged you.
Yeah.
But you give up the right to receive that, I don't know what the right word would be, receive that thing. Do you know what the word is? Justice. There we go.
Yeah.
For the sake of being obedient to Jesus in some really dramatic way, honestly.
Go and stop again because we're going to run out of time.
I know, I was going to read a verse.
But you got to
You've
cut
heard
it
it
before I
said-
slap
I know.
you. That's
No,
otherwise,
yeah,
otherwise
yeah,
the
no.
slaps on the internet.
You've heard it said, you have heard it said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. And as we read that and think about it, right, this is the character of God on display. Right? This is what God is like. His heart is for all. He's called us to mirror him in the way we love those who hate us. And I think that's all the way through the Bible, but I think particularly of Jesus on the cross, right? When he's being nailed to the cross, he is praying for those who are crucifying him. He's praying Dear Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. So we see this in the heart of our God who loves his enemies, and he's calling us to reflect him by doing that same thing. It's the question of how is it we do this, which is so counter what is in us ourselves. It's a supernatural thing that comes from the heart of God to us. What do you reckon?
That's it, isn't it? It's the heart that is genuinely for God, rather than the heart that is pretending to be for God.
Yeah.
Loves God. And what does it mean to love God? It means you like everything about him, right? Like you have affection for him. You think he's great.
Yeah.
And how could you not love him and not want to be like him?
Yeah.
So if we have a God who forgives his enemies, which by the way is how he forgave us.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Suddenly forgiving my enemies has a motive.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know about you, but for me, motive probably isn't enough to get me to do it. I'm going to need a whole bunch of grace there as well to get there.
Yeah.
Which elsewhere in the Bible, God promises that he's going to give us.
That's right, yeah. And the work of the Spirit in our lives as well. Paul talks about the fruit of the Spirit indwelling us is that we have this peace, joy, love, faithfulness, self-control, patience, these things. I do love the way he kind of says, look, if you love your buddies, everyone loves their buddies, right? That's the easy part of love. It's important. But yeah, the worst of humanity still love their own.
It's like one of those things in the Bible where you try to look for a modern equivalent. It's like everyone in the first century hated tax collectors. Who do we hate? Well, it's tax collectors.
Different reasons though. Not just because we hate taxes.
People who can't merge on highways.
It's worse than that. It's worse than that. Yeah. And then he finishes on this brutal bombshell at the end. Therefore, be perfect, as your heavenly Father is perfect.
I want that, right?
That's the call. That's the call.
And if we were to make that the condition of having God approve of us and make us his children, we would never be God's children.
We would just be crushed.
But if we have this as the goal that God brings us to by his grace, what a wonderful goal it is.
Yeah.
It's like, if it's by his grace, we're actually going to get there. There's a day coming, not from this passage, but from, read the rest of it.
Yeah.
There's a day coming when that is who Jules is going to be. That is who Mike's going to be. Yeah.
By God's grace. Yeah. Certainly. We talked about it with Danielle before, right? This idea of, if it can be a crushing thought to feel like we need to live up to that. And yet, it's the promise of Scripture that God is conforming us into his image. That our sanctification is happening through the power of the Spirit. And it's almost an inevitability if we continue to walk in faith that we'll grow, display the fruit of the Spirit, that he will make us holy, that we will be perfect like he is perfect. Not in this life, but the day is coming.
So here's a good way to summarize all this. All this is to say, we're listening along to the Sermon on the Mount, and if you're listening at home and you've been listening to what Jesus has had to say of any of these themes, and you've felt that pinch, that I am an angry person, I'm a lustful person, I am taking marriage with a different kind of attitude than what God does, I'm not honest, I retaliate and go for vengeance, I don't love my enemies, which who does? What am I supposed to do with these things? And the answer is we go to God for grace, because we aren't like these things, for forgiveness. But then by his grace, we try to do the right thing.
We chase them.
We pursue the right thing.
Right.
This actually does call us to action. It's not all on us to do this without God's help, and neither is it all in the future that in such a way that requires nothing of us now. If you have someone who you've wronged, go and apologise. If you are battling with lust, start battling better by God's grace. Cut off the things in your life that are causing that to be an issue, and that is the road to pursuing God by faith.
That's right. That grace-fueled obedience. That's the path to life through faith. We're actually going to finish there, I think, actually. Thanks so much for joining us. And thanks so much for joining us as well, Mr. Jules.
Had a great time.
Really appreciate you having on the show. First one, I'm sure we'll have you back.
I would be keen.
You'd be keen. Oh, there you go. You had it here first.
It would have been awkward if he hadn't done one.
That's right. Hey, Jules, how do you take constructive feedback? Constructive criticism. It's less constructive and more just devastating.
We'll be in touch with you in regards to the next meeting.
I'll have my people call you.
That's right, but don't wait for that phone call though. No, let's finish up. Join us next time as we jump into chapter 6 and we start looking at the kind of next passage where Jesus talks about, let me remember, true righteousness versus false righteousness, and with the Lord's Prayer in there as well. So lots of good stuff coming up, and so we'll see you next time. Grace and peace. Finger gun. We did it.
All done at the same time.
Organised.